Have you ever wondered how some civilizations seem to last far longer than others? Most empires in history rose quickly, burned bright, and then collapsed within a few hundred years. But ancient Egypt was different. For over 3,000 years, through floods, famines, wars, and countless rulers, they endured. That's more than 10 times the age of most modern nations today. And here's the fascinating part: their survival wasn't an accident. They lived with certain principles, habits, and choices that carried them through centuries. Now, you might be thinking, that's interesting, but what does it have to do with me? Well, if a whole civilization could find ways to last for thousands of years, imagine what lessons we can learn from them about creating a long, healthy, meaningful life for ourselves. After all, once we reach 60 and beyond, longevity, independence, and fulfillment become more important than ever. And who better to inspire us than a people who mastered the art of living and thriving for millennia? So today, we're going to talk about 7 of the secrets that kept ancient Egypt alive for 3,000 years. And as we go through them, I want you to think about how these lessons, though born thousands of years ago, can apply directly to your life now. Because while we might not be building pyramids, we are building our own kind of legacy every single day. Let's start with the first secret, one that is easy to overlook in our busy modern world: balance with nature. The Egyptians lived along the Nile River, and they depended on it for everything: food, water, transportation, and even spiritual meaning. Every year, the Nile would flood, depositing rich soil onto the farmlands, making their crops grow strong. Instead of fighting against the rhythms of nature, they worked with them. They planted when the floods receded. They stored food during abundance to prepare for leaner times. They accepted that life moved in cycles, and they lived in harmony with those cycles. Think about how that lesson applies to us now. Many of us, especially as we age, try to push our bodies as if they were machines. We ignore our natural rhythms, eat at odd hours, stay up late, or push through fatigue without rest. But longevity doesn't come from fighting nature, it comes from aligning with it. Just like the Egyptians adjusted their lives to the Nile, we can adjust ours to our body's natural flow. That might mean eating lighter in the evenings, giving ourselves permission to rest when we're tired, or even simply taking a walk when the sun is out to soak up natural light. When you live in balance with your body's cycles, you aren't just existing, you're thriving. Now, let's move to the second secret: their devotion to community and purpose. Egyptians didn't see themselves as isolated individuals. Everyone had a role: farmers, craftsmen, priests, builders, and each role contributed to the survival of the whole. Even the smallest job, like carrying water, was part of something larger. This shared sense of purpose gave people belonging and meaning, which are essential for a long life. Today, one of the greatest threats to seniors is loneliness. Studies have shown that isolation can be just as harmful as smoking or obesity. But when you stay connected, when you feel useful, your body and mind respond with vitality. The Egyptians understood that no one could survive alone in the desert. And in our own lives, that lesson is just as powerful. Whether it's joining a local club, volunteering, helping with grandchildren, or even starting a new project you've always dreamed of, being part of something bigger than yourself keeps you alive in ways that go far beyond the physical. And that leads naturally into the third secret: rituals that nurtured both body and spirit. The Egyptians were famous for their rituals. From morning prayers to celebrations of the harvest, they didn't separate daily life from the sacred. Every meal, every gathering, every offering to the gods was part of maintaining balance in their world. Why does this matter? Because rituals create stability. They give life rhythm and structure. And that structure is deeply healing, especially as we age. Think about how comforting it is to start your day with a cup of tea, or to take a walk at the same time each afternoon, or to write in a journal before bed. These small rituals, repeated daily, become anchors. They lower stress, improve memory, and make life feel less chaotic. You don't need pyramids or temples to have meaningful rituals, you just need habits that give your days shape and comfort. The Egyptians lived by these secrets: harmony with nature, community and purpose, and rituals that sustained their spirit. And even though thousands of years have passed, the wisdom is timeless. They remind us that longevity isn't about just surviving, it's about creating a life that feels balanced, connected, and meaningful. One of the most overlooked strengths of the Egyptians was their incredible attention to food and nourishment. They may not have known modern science, but they had a practical understanding of how diet shaped their health and longevity. Their meals were simple but powerful: bread made from whole grains, vegetables grown along the Nile, fish from the river, and fruits like dates and figs that gave them natural sweetness and energy. They didn't have fast food or processed sugar, and because of that, their bodies stayed strong enough to labor, build, and endure the challenges of their environment. When you think about it, this is a lesson we can directly apply today. After 60, our bodies don't always process food the same way they used to. Heavy meals can slow us down, sugar can make our energy crash, and too much processed food can fuel health problems. But just like the Egyptians, we can turn back to simple, nourishing foods. A slice of whole grain bread, a piece of fresh fruit, a handful of vegetables with olive oil, these aren't just meals, they're medicine. Eating closer to nature, as they did, helps keep digestion smooth, joints less inflamed, and energy steady throughout the day. Food can either be the weight that drags us down, or the fuel that keeps us living vibrantly, year after year. But food wasn't their only form of medicine. Another secret that sustained ancient Egypt for millennia was their practice of natural healing. Long before hospitals and pharmacies, they relied on herbs, oils, and natural remedies passed down through generations. They used garlic and onions not only for flavor but to strengthen immunity. Honey was treasured for its healing properties. It was applied to wounds and infections, and even today, science confirms its antibacterial power. They believed in preventative care, treating small issues early before they grew into major problems. This is a powerful reminder for us now. Too often, we ignore small signals from our bodies until they turn into something much bigger. Maybe it's brushing off that nagging backache, or ignoring trouble with sleep, or pretending that stress doesn't affect us. But the Egyptians teach us the importance of listening to those signals, caring for the body gently, and using nature whenever possible to support health. It could be as simple as drinking chamomile tea for relaxation, stretching to relieve stiffness, or taking walks outdoors to refresh the lungs and mind. Natural care doesn't mean rejecting modern medicine, it means strengthening our foundation so we can rely on both. Another reason the Egyptians thrived for so long was their respect for wisdom and learning. They didn't just build temples and pyramids, they built libraries, recorded knowledge on papyrus, and trained scribes to carry wisdom from one generation to the next. They understood that survival wasn't just about strong bodies but sharp minds. A civilization could not last for 3,000 years without memory, without stories, without learning passed forward. And here's where it touches our lives. Mental sharpness is just as important as physical strength, especially after 60. Keeping the brain active keeps the spirit alive. The Egyptians knew this instinctively, and so they read, they wrote, they taught their children, and they celebrated wisdom as much as they celebrated strength. For us, that might mean reading books, learning new skills, doing puzzles, or even sharing our own life stories with younger generations. Each time you challenge your mind, you're keeping your personal library open and alive. And just like Egypt, your wisdom becomes a legacy that outlives you. Think about how these three secrets, nourishing food, natural healing, and devotion to wisdom, fit together. They created strength, resilience, and continuity. The Egyptians didn't live in an easy world. They faced harsh deserts, unpredictable floods, and constant threats from outside forces. But these practices gave them the tools to keep moving forward. And just like them, we can draw strength from the simplest things: what we eat, how we care for our bodies, and how we keep our minds alive and learning. Another key to Egypt's extraordinary endurance was their sense of community and connection. Life along the Nile wasn't lived alone. Families, neighbors, and villages worked side by side to farm the land, raise children, and support one another. The strength of Egypt wasn't just in its pharaohs or monuments, it was in its people, looking out for each other day by day. When one person harvested grain, another might grind it into flour, while someone else baked it into bread to share. This web of interdependence gave them resilience against hardship and created a bond that kept society strong through centuries of change. Now, think about how much this matters in our own lives. As we grow older, it can be tempting to withdraw, to feel like our role is shrinking. But the Egyptian way reminds us that community isn't just about giving, it's also about receiving, about staying connected, about knowing that we are stronger together. For us, that might mean spending time with family, joining a local club, volunteering, or even just sharing conversations with neighbors. The more we stay connected, the less we feel isolated, and the more meaning we find in each day. But alongside this deep sense of community, the Egyptians also had an unshakable belief in purpose and legacy. They didn't see life as ending with the final breath. For them, every action in this life prepared the way for the next. That's why they built tombs, temples, and monuments, not only for kings, but for ordinary people who wanted to be remembered, who wanted their lives to have meaning beyond the moment. The devotion to legacy made them think carefully about how they lived, how they treated others, and what they left behind. And isn't that one of the greatest lessons we can take today? After 60, many of us begin to wonder, what will I leave behind? What memories, what stories, what values will my children and grandchildren carry from me? It doesn't have to be a pyramid to stand the test of time. It could be the love you gave your family, the wisdom you shared, the example of resilience you lived by. Legacy isn't about size, it's about meaning. And every one of us has the power to shape it. Finally, perhaps the most powerful secret of all that kept Egypt alive was balance. They lived in harmony with the Nile, timing their planting with its floods and their harvests with its cycles. They saw life itself as a rhythm of opposites, day and night, birth and death, struggle and joy. Their goddess Ma'at symbolized this balance, reminding them that survival came not from fighting life's rhythms, but from flowing with them. For us, balance may mean something as simple as listening to our bodies, resting when we need to, moving when we can, eating in moderation, laughing often, and not carrying stress longer than we must. Balance is what makes longevity possible. Without it, we burn out, break down, or lose our sense of peace. With it, we can live not just longer, but fuller, more joyful years. So, when we bring all these secrets together, nourishment, natural healing, wisdom, community, legacy, and balance, we see why Egypt lasted 3,000 years. And more importantly, we see how those same secrets can guide us today. They remind us that living well isn't about chasing what's new, but embracing what's timeless. Simple food, gentle care, a sharp mind, loving connections, a purpose that outlasts us, and balance in everything. You don't have to be a pharaoh to apply these lessons. You don't need grand monuments or treasures of gold. You already have the greatest treasures within reach: your body, your mind, your loved ones, your time. Protect them, nurture them, and celebrate them. That is how you live a long, rich, and meaningful life. If this message inspired you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Which of these secrets speaks to you the most right now? Maybe it's food, maybe it's balance, maybe it's legacy. Share your experience, because your story can inspire someone else too. And if you enjoyed this journey through ancient wisdom, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep learning, growing, and thriving together. Here's to living with the same strength and spirit that carried Egypt across 3,000 years, and to making every one of our own years count.